This is my body broken for you. Take it and eat. Do this in remembrance of me. This is my blood poured out for you. Take it and drink it. Do this in remembrance of me. In remembrance of me. Do you remember the tiny baby born in Bethlehem? The one who was worshipped by both shepherds and kings? Or do you remember the young boy who stayed behind in the temple, his father's house, astounding the scholars there with his wisdom and knowledge? Perhaps you remember the humble man who went down to the river to be baptized by his cousin John, the one over who God audibly announced, "This is my son, in whom I am well pleased." Or perhaps the compassionate man who went about healing the sick and setting the captives free from their bondage, telling the people about God's kingdom. How about the triumphant king entering Jerusalem, riding on a donkey? Or the concerned friend who tries to explain to those closest to him what exactly was about to happen? Do you remember the silent prisoner who did not defend himself against his accusers? Do you remember as they beat him, as the whips tore into his flesh and ripped it from his body, as he was spat on, as he was stripped and degraded, so that by his stripes you can be healed? Do you remember as he stumbled through the crowded streets of Jerusalem, carrying his cross, the rough wood eating into his already raw flesh? Can you remember the soldiers removing his robe so that he was naked before his tormentors? The shame and humiliation. Could you remember as they placed the nail in his hand and drove it through him to a place where agony screams of mercy, to a place where flesh will no longer endure? But nothing compared with the pain in his heart when God placed the sins of the world on him and looked away. Could you remember how alone he was, deserted by his disciples, rejected by the ones he came to save, and abandoned by his Father? And so alone and in agony, he was deserted so that we never have to feel alone. He was rejected so that we never have to feel unwanted. He was sacrificed so that we could be saved. And all he asked was that as often as we drank the wine and ate the bread, that we remember him.